Hello, I am Dorit Geva, and I'm the Dean of Undergraduate Studies at Central European University, and I'm also a political sociologist who has published and researched about the history and politics of military service. One of the editorial items that is reappearing here and there at the height of this coronavirus crisis is the opinion on the part of some that there should be a revival of conscription systems. We see editorials like this, for example, in the United States and also in the UK. As somebody who's written especially about the history of military service and published a book about it in 2013, this is of particular interest to me. As a complete coincidence, in early April in the United States, the White House received a report from a national commission that over several years was assessing whether there needs to be the incorporation of women into the US draft system or its conscription system. Women have never until now been required to register with the draft. And the commission has suggested to President Trump that there should be the incorporation now of women into the draft system. Now, the US draft system, if you pay attention to its official name, is called the Selective Service System. That means that when it was founded in the midst of the First World War in 1917, it was never designed to be a universal system, but it was designed to be a system which selects who should be sent to war and who should stay home to, for example, take care of dependent children, support families, or study in universities. And this system of deferments and exemptions persisted during all the years that the draft was actively in operation between the First World War and the Vietnam War. The draft was then ended, an active conscription was ended in the United States at the end of the Vietnam War, but since 1981, men still have to register with the draft. And the report that was just submitted to the White House now suggests that women should register. What I have always found problematic with the US draft system, in which I underscore in my book and also in an article that I published in a journal called Polity, is that this is a system that by design has determined whose life is worth more than others. And as we also know from the history of the draft, this meant that it has a long history of institutional racism. White men were more likely to be deferred on the basis of being students or being supporters of dependents, of being husbands or having children. And women's incorporation into the draft doesn't make the US Selective Service System any less problematic. It's still a system that would determine who should live, who should stay home and do other civic duties, and versus who should be sent to war. At this time, when we're shocked by, for example, hospital workers having to make a decision as to whom to save, who should get access to scarce ventilators and who should not during this coronavirus crisis, the same moral outrage is not applied when people think about the Selective Service System. So, in my view, this latest commission report, which does not suggest that the selective nature should change, does not fundamentally change a deeply problematic conscription system. In my view, the Selective Service System should simply be disbanded.